I have been moved by all who spoke about the book, about Dr. Rukobo and his family. I was listening very carefully when our former Chief Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Dr. Mishek Sibanda, went memory lane.
Welcome, Curious Minds. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into something really compelling. We're looking at a specific set of sources around a book launch in Zimbabwe. We've got parts of a YouTube transcript, specifically a speech by Vice President Chiwenga. This was at the launch of Dr. Matenda Rukobo's book, The Intersocial Scientist's Memoir of a Public Servant. So our mission today, unpack the big claims and the powerful vision in this speech. What's this book really about beyond just being a memoir? And what are these, frankly, surprising historical narratives being put forward? And maybe most importantly, what does all this mean for Zimbabwe's national identity, its public service? Get ready for some potential aha moments. This really offers a unique window into how a nation is looking at its past to shape its future. Okay, let's start right there, at the heart of it. Dr. Rukobo's book, the Vice President didn't just introduce it, he described it in, pretty significant terms. It sounds like much more than someone's life story. How exactly did he frame this, a 475-page book?
Yeah, it's fascinating how he put it. He said very clearly this is not a literary event. Instead, he called it a historical and ideological milestone. That's quite a statement. He presented the Intersocial Scientist's Memoir of a Public Servant as this panoramic view of Zimbabwe's evolution, social, political, institutional. It seems to mix autobiography with philosophy, even a public administration case study. And the description emphasized it being sharp, reflective, and boldly patriotic. So definitely positioned as more than just personal recollections.
Right. Historical and ideological milestone. That certainly sets a high bar. And he didn't stop there, did he? He linked it directly to that famous call from Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The whole African history demands a radical rewriting idea. How does this book supposedly answer that call?
Well, connecting it to that bigger picture, the book is described as being, deeply steeped in liberation instruction. That's the phrase used. It apparently pays homage to key figures in African nationalism, not just Zimbabweans like Robert Mugabe or Herbert Chitepo, but also continent-wide leaders, people like Nair from Tanzania, Kanda from Zambia, Nujoma from Namibia, giants of that era. And it also mentions that Dr. Rukobo was mentored by the current president, Emerson Mnangagwa. So it's not just a random list of names. It very deliberately places the book within a specific lineage. It's framed as a key text for understanding the country's post-colonial thinking, its leadership, and this whole effort to redefine itself by looking back.
Okay, and this is where, for me at least, it gets really, really interesting. The vice president makes some truly remarkable historical claims, suggesting Zimbabwe's civilization wasn't just old, but maybe even more advanced than its colonizers. He actually said, when the British arrived, they were 900 years behind us. A millennium almost.
Yeah.
That's astonishing. What's the basis given for that, that specific claim in the speech?
It definitely makes you sit up and listen. And yes, it does raise big questions about historical narratives. The speaker did elaborate a bit. He gave specific examples meant to show this advanced state. He mentioned Zimbabwe having its first doctor in 1670, named as Father Michael, and also having Zimbabwean graduates way back to the 15th century. These points were presented as direct evidence for the statement that we were more civilized. It's a fundamental challenge to the standard Eurocentric timelines, isn't it? Asserting this ancient, sophisticated African civilization. The real insight, perhaps, is seeing how this narrative is being used to reclaim history, to assert a pre-colonial strength that really flips the usual power dynamic.
He also brought up Dr. Rukobo's time in India and mentioned a lot of literature, mostly in Portuguese, apparently, brought back from there. And it's now being translated by the church in Midland State University. How does that fit in? How does this literature support these grand historical claims?
Right, this literature is presented as holding some pretty amazing stories, almost like missing puzzle pieces, including the idea that Zimbabwe taught religion to 4 continents. As we specifically mentioned, were the original Indian continent, Asia, China, and South America. And there were specific figures named, which adds a layer of detail. Like Father Duo, supposedly the son of an Emperor Gutari, who was taken by the Portuguese. They thought he was an ambassador and then converted. And that Father Michael figure, again from somewhere called Embracaparis, apparently has a refurbished grave in Goa, India. There's even a third group mentioned from Embrapande, with names like Constantine and Joe.
Wow, so these aren't just vague assertions. They're linking specific named individuals from ancient Zimbabwe to global events.
Exactly. People like Father Duo and Father Michael are presented as concrete links. The takeaway being pushed is this long global reach of Zimbabwean influence, long before Europeans arrived. And this new literature, the translation work, is framed as crucial to finally complete this historical chapter. A chapter that, according to the speech, previous leaders had already started to uncover. There's also a call to properly document the nation's statecraft, its governance systems, acknowledging successes but also mistakes, where it erred.
Okay, so beyond the history, fascinating as it is, there seems to be a very strong push towards the future, too, towards national identity, public service. The Vice President mentioned a moving patriotism in the book. What kind of values is this book trying to reaffirm or maybe even ignite?
Yes, definitely forward-looking as well. The launch event itself was framed that way, as a reaffirmation of the values that must underpin the humanization of power.
Humanization of power. What does that mean in practice?
Well, the implication seems to be making government more responsive, less distant, more focused on the people. And it was paired with the democratization of service delivery, making sure public services reach everyone fairly, and also the moral revitalization of public institutions, a call for ethics, basically. This patriotism was linked to a liberation song. The translation given was, "Zimbabwe is the land of our birthright. We love Zimbabwe and all its wealth. Rise, Zimbabwe." So the message is clear. Stay committed to your identity. There's no other country besides our birthright. It's really a call to re-engage with what they see as foundational values, arguing that a strong identity is key for good governance.
So for you, the listener, and maybe especially for younger people thinking about public service, what's the intended impact here? What does this book aim to do?
It's explicitly presented as a call to arms.
A call to arms.
Yes, but importantly, not with weapons. The speech clarifies of intellect, unity, and patriotic responsibility. The goal is to inspire a new generation. Public servants, yes, but also forward thinkers is the term used. People who aren't afraid to look critically at the past to, build a better future. The book is positioned as offering this bold, principled, and self-defined Zimbabwean voice. In a world where lots of places are struggling with identity and how to govern themselves, it's intended, the speech says, to be read with conscience, discussed widely, used in policy making, kept in archives, a real gift to the nation. And they specifically call out its relevance for every public administration school, police think tank, and national library. That tells you who they want reading it.
And just to round that off, there's a very direct message for people already in public office right now. What's that core message?
Absolutely. It's very direct. It calls for public servants to recommit to the highest standards of ethics, integrity, and accountability. It stresses that the civil service absolutely must stand as a beacon of incorruptibility and moral clarity. Why? To protect public trust, to make sure government actually serves the people, not, individual agendas. So it's not just abstract values. It's a direct challenge to current officials to live up to the ideals being promoted by the book and the launch. The future, it suggests, depends on.
Wow, what a deep dive that was. We've really unpacked Dr. Matenda Rukobo's book, seeing it framed not just as a memoir, but as this significant historical and ideological marker for Zimbabwe, from these really ambitious claims about rewriting African history, about ancient civilizations and global connections, to this powerful call for a renewed sense of national identity and, crucially, ethical public service. It's very clear the intention here is to use a redefined past to shape the future quite deliberately.
And that really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it, for you, the listener, to think about. What does it actually mean when a nation consciously decides to complete and rewrite its own history? Through new scholarship, yes, but also through this kind of renewed commitment to public service values. How might these narratives, whether they're rooted in claims about the distant past or hopes for the future, how might they shape the identity, the sense of purpose for generations to come? Not just in Zimbabwe, but maybe in any country. What are the implications when history is actively reimagined in this way?
Definitely food for thought. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and stay well informed.